bar loop or loop bar, whatever they are. And they do that from very early morning. They get up very early for those. One of the things you can see is the optonics have got strange things on, and those are the rabbit that are rather bigger than perhaps are normally needed. This is a very quiet spell we've just had, but before that it's been blowing about up to force 11 for 4 days and nights. And this what looks like a moonscape. This is what you're fishing over. You can imagine the water will be back up here when many other people fish, and it's this sort of area that your line's lying across. And I've lost about 1,000 metres of line in just the 9 days we've been here, and you can see why. If you leave the line long on the bottom, it soon gets trapped in and around and under rocks, and I'm not risking losing fish, so I'll be stripping it off as and when there's any nicks up here. And you see some of the tree stumps. And if you think this is snaggy, we chose this because it was relatively snag free, and the 2 other areas we fished were very much snaggier, and that was really quite hard going. Right, here are some of the fish that didn't get out because we forgot to do the drawstrings up. And all these fish you're going to see came on one morning, and that was our best morning, unsurprisingly, and the fish were feeding very heavily, and that seemed to be the way it went, in fact. But they have these periods of feeding which are on about a 3 or 4 day turnaround time, and so we got here on Friday, and that would be Friday the 5th, and we fished through, and now this is Wednesday morning, and we'd had a feeding spell on Friday which we hadn't really taken advantage of. It had been a bit quieter since. Here's the first one, a lovely 19.3, this super long fish, holding itself well. Well pleased with this. This beats my personal best, by the way. First fish I've had. In fact, I always fish over my personal best, which was only 16, so that's a lot to go for. And the best that we'd had before in our group was the 24 hours to Thames, and since I've been fishing with Eric and Sid and Kevin, they bumped that up rather, and we're looking now this trip to get a fish over 30, which seemed to be highly possible, seeing as the lake could offer such fish. I've seen the reports about them being caught on Boyley just before we went, and that was something that we were not really too sure about, because we're not modern day carp anglers, and we haven't really looked into that scene terribly, as we haven't needed to on natural lakes. Couldn't believe it was totally necessary, so we stuck with our own boilies, which were potatoes, and that's what the locals use. And if you take Michelle, or Michael, whatever his name is, the guy who's done well around this area, he's had 3 fish over 30 on potato. I'm not talking about 30 pounds, I'm talking about 30 kilos. That's quick maths, about 66 pound plus, and his top one is 72. When you've looked in the restaurants and seen some of the pictures of the fish that he's had, you can well believe they're of that size. After this feeding spell that they would go quiet, and they did. And it wasn't until 2 days later that I had the 27.8, and then just on the day we were leaving on the Sunday, I lost 1 fish and Sid lost 1. That's on takes, not on breaking up or anything. Well, this one was what we came for. Strange little growth under the gills there, you may have seen. It's almost a spare scale or something, very odd. I'm not quite sure what it was. This was much bigger. This is what we were looking for. This is 32. Imagine what I was thinking when catching this. This is I've been 4 days into carp fishing since I gave up back in the late 60s. And then I get this. I don't know how long I've had to fish for it in this country. I've had to spend a lot more time and effort for it. And I've caught it in a lot less natural circumstances, which I count these as. Really wonderful, and they fight like tigers. Really very powerful. I'm using a soft action 3.5 test curve pike rod. Cope with it very well, but I had it right hooked over, and it makes very, very powerful runs. And using back winding rather than clutch slipping. But the first one I hooked on the Friday dusk session went straight out, and I was back winding hooked over, and Sid telling me I ought to put more pressure on. But the thing was so powerful, until you hook one you just don't know. And you may be talking about fish of 40 to 70 pound odd, and they're very difficult to stop. And that one just powered into the snow. I did have one fish that first session. Had one at dawn, very small common, only about a kilo, about 2.5 pound. Not a very big fish at all, but a common. And I didn't come across commons. We didn't see any in the pictures around the place. And that was the first one we'd seen. But it'd be interesting to think that you could have a massive common in here as well. I think this was worth every penny of the cost. It's about £250. Very fair. It was about 60 for the car. It's 20 each for us return. We got petrol on top. The Sid coming down from near Penrith, it was 1100 miles. For me it's only about 900 or just under. And on the French autoroutes you can fairly zip along at over 80. And it's about between 10 and 20 hours travelling, depending on where you're going to come from in England. And here's my third fish. This is the one that really got us pleased, because I think I'll have to go somewhere in England to catch ones like this. Not the biggest one, right, but it's by far my biggest. You can see very chunky fish. That's 20.5 kilo, and that converts to 45 pounds. I find a lot of difficulty in holding fish of this size for very long. I can understand why those people who've seen other videos of big carp not holding them for very long. You've got them on the ground, it's simply not terribly strong. It takes a lot of holding. And now that for a carp then. That's what we're after. Size 2 hook, one of the Komatsu ones. Very good on hooking the Komatsus when you've got it right. Absolutely massive. And the fight was tremendous. Had a lot of trouble getting that one in. Just kept going and going, not on runs, but just couldn't get it to the bank. Very heavy and just kept out. Proving to be quite a good morning, as you can see. That's 3 fish, 19, 3, 32 and 45. And we've got one more to come, which is Sid's. The first few days were absolutely miserable. It was cold and damp and drizzly all day long, and then about 3 days in, it just cleared for an hour, and we got sunburnt about three days in. And then after that, the Mistral started to blow, and the weather then is very good. Now, if you want to know what size boilers you can use, nearly 3 inches probably, to accommodate that fish's mouth. And you can go up to some pretty big boilers if you want to sort them out on the size of burley method, just for the big fish. But they're really knockout. Just can't believe the size of these things in real life until you see them in real life. Absolutely amazing. certainly I want to go back there. And there's say one or two others. Well, and we've found one or two other waters. You don't have to travel right down to the south coast. In the recording in one paper it was 10 pike over 40, and the guy who had this pike while we were there had a perch as well, and that was with it, an enormous perch with that pike he had, of 1.24 m, and that was, looked to my eyes, about a 6 pound plus fish. There's Sid's fish, absolutely fabulous scattered now, really does look impressive. This is 29.12. Cannot believe the sort of morning we've had. 4 fish all over 19.3, up to 45. I haven't added it up, but it must be something like 4 fish for, I don't know, somewhere near 130 pounds. And we're not doing anything special. These are the fairly run-of-the-mill fish for the lake. As I say, the guy who catches the big ones catches them in September, October time, when they're moving well, when he catches them on the potato. And he's had 3 over 30 kilo. You saw a picture of a 24 and a half he'd had fairly recently, and that really did look something. That would be about, what, 56 pounds, I suppose. 2 people to hold it. And I can understand why they had pictures of 2 of them holding it now. It'd be very difficult to hold up. Now you're thinking of a fish twice this size of this one. You know, most of you would be very happy to have a 30, let alone somewhere around about 60. Very impressive fish, aren't they? We hope to go back and have some more of this, and probably use this lake again to start with, before moving on to some of the other ones. I like the idea of some of the river ones, where we can combine barbel and carp. It'd be interesting to go back for the pike here as well as the carp. Certainly like to catch one of the really big carp. With what we know now, we could catch a lot more carp next time. We didn't make as much of it as we could. Well, there you go, they're all gone back, and so will we soon.